Welcome to Chaos Podcast. I am your host, Terry Lynn. I am a virtual assistant, bookkeeper, and international business strategist. I love leveling up, creating strategies, and thinking outside of the box, especially with serial entrepreneurs because we are impacting the world with new innovations, community collaboration, and global technology. We will discuss strategies that stifle mental chaos so that you can create habits and outstanding success. Right here on Chaos. Good afternoon, Janet. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine. Thank you for inviting me.
It's wonderful to have you. I have read your book. I've read this little pamphlet. I've been hanging around where you have been hanging, and
Okay.
you're an extraordinary person, and I am looking forward to our audience getting to know you. Introduce yourself.
Okay. Well, my name is Janet Grillo, and I am originally from Wilmington, Delaware, and I moved to Viera, Florida in 2014. My background is by trade, I'm a fine jewelry and diamond broker. I worked in the luxury jewelry industry for, my whole life and had my own business as a fine jewelry and diamond broker for 23 years. And then on December 13th, 2001, I entered a world that I never knew existed. My husband died tragically on December 13th, like I said. He died. To this day, I don't know if it was a suicide, assisted suicide, suggested suicide, or murder. And so I went in search of finding out why my husband, who called me twice a day, that told me that he loved me, why he was dead. And so basically from there, my life changed forever.
Okay, let's go back to you being a diamond broker. How did you become a diamond broker?
At the age of 15, I went to work part-time in a jewelry store, and I fell in love with it. I worked there through college, and then I stayed there in a management capacity. And after 15 years, I said, I've given you the best years of my life from age 15 to age 30. And so I went
Wow.
in search for something bigger, and I ended up supervising 2 chains of department stores for fine jewelry. One was Macy's and one was John Wanamaker, and John Wanamaker was the very first department store in the country. And so I supervised total 25 fine jewelry department stores in the country. And so I just traveled around to each of the stores as a training supervisor, a mentor, and then I did that. And then I ended up working at a jewelry store because what happened was in Wanamaker's, they were sold by Woodward and Lothrop, or they were sold to Woodward and Lothrop, and they disintegrated fringe positions like I had. So I went to work for a jewelry store in Wilmington, Delaware, and I worked there, for about 5 years. And now that I think about it, I worked there until 2 men came in and put a gun to my head and took out $300,000 worth of jewelry. And so after that, it was kind of, we agreed that I just decided that I was going to leave, but I did end up owning my own business as a fine jewelry and diamond broker. And I did that out of an office. So all of my business was done by appointments and by referrals. It was a very lucrative business. My office was in the ground floor of the building where I lived. So I just came down 6 floors to go to work and went back upstairs, and everything was by appointment. And it was a very good life.
Nice. And how long did you do that?
I did that for 23 years.
23
Mhm.
years. When did you meet your husband?
August 2nd, 1983.
Oh my goodness, she knows exactly when she met him.
8283. Yep. That was always like a favorite number of ours. So,
Where'd you meet him?
as crazy as it seems, I had some girlfriends that we would have dinner with once a month. And that was way before cell phones. And when I set up the appointment for the following month, we knew exactly the place where to go, what time to be there, and everything else. But we never connected. We would just show up. And on this one particular day, my husband, well, actually, on this one particular day, I went to the bar and I got there early and no one was there. So I ordered a drink and I sat down and I waited for them to come and nobody came. So after a while, I got up and I called all of them from the payphone. And even that particular night, one other person was supposed to be there and they didn't show up. So when no one answered the phone, I figured I just had the wrong time. And crazy enough, one more person came into the bar. The bar sat about 50 people. When I entered in there was a man sitting at the end of the bar talking to a bartender. But when I got off the phone, that one man that came in sat in the exact same seat that I was sitting in, which I thought was crazy because there were so many seats. And so I ended up sitting halfway between that man and the man who was talking to the bartender. And then that man moved over to me and said, I guess you're waiting for someone and they're not showing up. And I remember saying, today's Tuesday, isn't it? And he said, yeah. So he said, well, can I buy you a drink? And I went, oh, sure. And then I ordered, let me pay for your soup. I said, no, sir, that's okay. I got the soup, I'll take care of that. So after a while, we continued to talk. And then he asked me if I wanted to have dinner with him. And I thought, oh, what the heck? Thinking that I was just going to stay right there in the restaurant to have. And he said, no, I don't feel like eating here. There's a place up the road that's a seafood place with lobster. And I went, oh, well, what the heck, Back in the time, you wouldn't do that today, especially,
Oh, no.
Or something like that. So we ended up having a great time and talking. He was married. I was married. I didn't think anything of it, but it was crazy. Conversation led us that he wasn't happy in his marriage, and I was sleeping on the sofa for a year in my marriage. So it was not good either way, for that. So we exchanged work phone numbers at the end of the conversation with really no thought of revisiting.
Wow, that is incredible.
I know,
So
because
you went to meet some girlfriends and end up meeting your future husband.
yeah, well, the crazy thing is about that, and I think how God intervenes into our lives is if one person had answered that phone, I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't have written that book. So I look at it like that was part of God's plan.
I think that everything is God's plan.
Absolutely. No question
I
about
think that
that.
everything is God's plan.
Mhm.
So did you fall in love?
No, not I just thought he was a nice guy. I mean, I was married, he was married. I had no interest in doing anything outside of my marriage. And it was probably 3 or 4 months later when he gave me a call just to see, hey, how you doing? So I said, well, it's still
Nice.
bad, but that's okay. And he says, well, you want to have dinner, So I just said, fine. So we just had dinner, like maybe, I don't know, once every couple of weeks or something. I certainly didn't have any intentions of doing anything, but he became a person that I could talk to, honestly with. And I thought he was talking honestly with me. And we became friends, and
Friends.
friends on
Yes.
the road, we ended up becoming lovers. And that's where it all began, I guess. We hated it for what we were doing, but we knew that the life that we seemed to be having in that few hours a week seemed to be better than the life that we had.
That is extraordinary. Yeah, you never know where you're gonna fall in love. You never know where you never know where your life is gonna go.
Oh gosh,
And
I have no idea. I have no idea.
you have to grasp the moments and live in them because now they have cell phones and they take all these pictures. And I'm like, you don't need cell phones. Just make memories because you never forget them. You don't
That's
need
true.
you
Yeah,
don't need digital photos.
no, but if someone came to me, 20 years ago and said, "Oh, you're going to meet this man. He's going to be married. You're going to be married. You're going to fall in love. You're going to be married for 15, 18 years. Oh, wait, I forgot to tell you, he's going to commit suicide. And oh, I forgot to tell you, allegedly he might be part of the mafia. Oh, and I forgot to tell you that he was having multiple affairs with other women while he was having."
Okay, let's slow down. Let's slow down, Janet.
No, I want to choose that thing on the clothesline. I don't want that life, So
And
that's a very good thing why God doesn't show us
yes,
what's in front of us. I look at it like there's pieces in the puzzle, and we can only truly see the pieces that we hold in our hands. We have chance meetings with different people and don't think anything of it, but yet
mm-mm.
down the road, that person becomes a vital part in what we're doing. And they go, oh yeah, like I get phone calls even like from you, and I'm going, let's see, where did I meet her? What would I do? How many years ago was that? And it was like, oh yeah, that's right, I remember. But I'm thinking, like, this is crazy. Why is this person showing up at my life at this time? But
Yeah.
that's the fun part of not knowing.
Why this now? Why
Right.
that then?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because I would certainly run away. I mean, there's no question about
Like,
that.
oh, hold up. No, I don't want any parts of any of that.
No fix up like that, that's for
No.
sure.
So when did you all get married?
We got married in Wilmington, Delaware, where I lived, and I lived there for the longest time. Matter of fact, growing up, I grew up 5 houses away from Joe Biden's family. For those
Wow.
claim to fame in Delaware, you're not 6 degrees of separation, you're like 1 or 2 degrees of separation. So I rode the school bus with his brothers, Frankie and Jimmy. Jimmy reminded me that he kissed me when I was in the 6th grade, but I didn't remember that. I thought that was kind of cute, And then I ended up living where the last place where I had lived before I had moved to Delaware, before I moved to Florida, and where my office was, my next door neighbor was Aunt Doreen, as we called her, and that was Hallie Biden's great aunt. So it's
Oh, wow.
kind of weird. So I still keep in touch, with the family, not Joe side, not Joe or Jill, but I'm friends with Hallie's parents. So when I visit Delaware, we always get together. So
Nice. That's
not that
very
it's going
nice.
to get me a good seat anywhere. It's just it's just
You
so happy.
never know.
You never
You
know.
never know. Yeah, you just never know. That's you've been a busy lady. We haven't even talked about your next life. Like when you were married. Did you have any children?
I have one daughter, and she's going to turn 50 in October, but it's not my husband's daughter. That was my second marriage. Yeah. So I just turned 71 in June this past year.
Wow. I know the audience is like roller coaster, roller coaster. Oh, what? Wait a minute. What did she say?
Yeah, I'm very
Yes.
fortunate. I'm only in the sun for the most part when I'm playing golf and every now and then, but I live 20 minutes from the ocean. I've
Oh,
lived here for 6 years, and I think I've been there 5 times.
what?
That's
With what ocean?
the Atlantic Ocean.
Really?
Yeah. Where I live is about an hour southeast of Orlando.
Okay.
So it's just right on the coast.
So
And I
you
have a sister who lives here as well.
so you know the villages, right?
Well, the Villages is Central Florida.
That's where my mom lives.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I'll be there next week.
Excellent. There you go. I'll take a
Yeah.
ride over there and see you.
Oh yeah, come on. My mom is the more folks, the happier she is. She loves
Oh,
company. So you're more than welcome. And I
okay.
don't I don't even have to ask her.
I've got this crazy woman coming to visit with me. Something.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh,
She's an absolute wonderful person. She's a gem. She's a gift from God for me.
well, it looks
So
like the apple didn't fall far from the tree.
yeah. Well, I hope I'm gracing her, representing her well.
I'm
Oh
for you.
yeah, good. Okay. So we've taken a breath from this roller coaster that you've had us on. And I see in your book a lot of grieving. I see in your book a lot of transition from
Mhm.
the situation to understanding, um, which is hard for people to get to an understanding. And I also see peace. I
Mhm.
see peace in your book. So you, okay, tell us about being a mafia wife.
Well, allegedly,
Right. Of
allegedly.
course, allegedly, because you had no idea that you were even close to it or that he was even close to it.
Well, the interesting thing, my book is called "God Promised Me Wings to Fly," subtitled "There's Life After Suicide." And so it was interesting. No, thank you very much. Yeah. And it's interesting because I wrote a book, another book from 2011 to 2014. And the book is called My Victory Journal because what happened is I wrote the book, and it's a combination self-help book, autobiography, and also a journal where people will write in there, and they'll write letters, and they'll write letters directly to God. And sometimes there's pages in there where God can write back to you. But what happened was in 2017 is I thought, okay, now it's time. So I took it to a marketing company in Philadelphia. And my coach said to me, she asked, why did you write the book? And so after giving her two answers that she didn't like, she finally screamed in the phone and said, why did you write this book? So I said, I want people to know that there's life after suicide. She says, my gosh, that's the title of your book. I said, it's the title of what book? She says, the book you're going to write. And I go, well, what about my other book? She says, well, you'll write that down the road. So she said, we'll call it, what is it? Life After Suicide, and subtitled God Promised Me Wings to Fly. Where the God Promised Me Wings to Fly came from my own personal quote that simply is, in God's silent words, he promised me wings to fly. Come hell or high water, I'm going to hold him to his promise. So that's where that came into play. And then the very next day, I had a call with another coach who she worked with, Ann McAdoo, who was Tony Robbins' creative director. And the first words out of her mouth is we're going to change the title of your book. And I go, now what to? I haven't even started writing the book yet. I don't even know what it's going to be about. And she says, no, because we're going to change it to God Promised Me Wings to Fly, because then the emphasis is more on the healing part of it rather than the suicide part of it.
Okay.
And that made sense to me, because the suicides or the suicide preventions and different things, that's a small portion of it. The people that end up killing themselves, in a way, a lot of us might look at it like it's a selfish way, because it's almost like, how dare you? It's on the day that they die, they're not the only ones that die. We die too. You die inside, and first you die on the inside, and then you die on the outside. So what I was doing is I ended up writing in a journal, just because, just putting facts straight and stuff, because I ended up doing like a cold case investigation on my husband's death. 55 family members of my husband's family walked away from me after the last shovel of dirt was pitched on his grave. And so I not only had the trauma of my husband's death, wondering what the hell happened here, sort of thing. Then his family walks away. And then the week after that, my daughter and son-in-law come to me and said, Mom, sit down, we've got something to tell you. And I go, now what? What could be worse than the suicide? So they researched all of their facts, and they found out that Tony was having numerous affairs with other women, to the point that we figured out that he was probably involved with 5 women at the time that he died, to the point that he was living not only a double life, if not a triple life, and possibly another wife. And the crazy thing is that my ex-husband's wife worked in an attorney's office. And the week after my husband's death, she was in there working, and she overheard a colleague talk about her boyfriend. The colleague talked about her girlfriend's boyfriend, who committed suicide the same way that my husband died. So she went over to her and she says, this is really crazy. I can't imagine me hearing about 2 deaths by a gun for people within 1 week. Who was her boyfriend? And she said, oh, her boyfriend's Tony Grillo. She went, Tony Grillo? He's married. She says, no, he's not married. He's been my girlfriend's boyfriend for the last 5 years, that they even went on vacations together, and he was in the family portrait of the boyfriend. And I go, you got to be kidding me, right? And then to search on, they found other people's names. Some of the people I knew, they were friends of mine, supposedly friends of mine, and so I ended up approaching them afterwards. But after he died, I had a nervous breakdown. I had anxiety attacks. I was afraid to be by myself. And the deeper I got into the investigation, I said, you know what? You're scared. And then what I did is I actually ended up talking to mediums and psychics, which I share those stories in my book too.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I'm a huge fan of them, and some of them are just full of crap or something. But, for me, anything that I could get, I needed to get, because the family wasn't answering my calls. And when I did have run-ins with them, they were all lies. They were just simply all lying to me. And then about a year after, or 2 years, I guess, after my husband died, I went for a massage at a place where I had never been before. I don't even know how I got there, but I had never been there before. And the woman was giving massage, and she was asking me some questions, and she gave me a business card, and she said, you know, you need to talk to this person. So I took the business card home. I threw it in a decorative box in my kitchen, and with no thought of revisiting. And then 2 years after that, so now it's 4 years, 2 years after that, I opened the box and saw that card. It was like it was a command from God. I called them up and I said to the woman, my name is Janet Grillo. You don't know me. Someone gave me your business card 2 years ago. I'm supposed to talk to you, and I don't even know why. I don't even know what you do. So she said, you know what, why don't you come and talk to me? And if you feel that I can be helpful to you, then you can pay me. Well, as it turns out, she was a grief counselor, and both her mother and her son committed suicide. So she was the very first person that I had the opportunity to talk to as a credible witness that she really knew how I felt. So she asked me if I wrote in a journal, and I proudly sat up in my chair and said that I did. And then she asked me one question that changed my life forever. And that question simply is when you write in a journal, do you write to God? I go, oh, you can write to God? I didn't know you could do that. She said,
Yes.
yeah. So I left there, I went to the bookstore. I purchased a bound journal because it was important for me that the journal was bound, because I didn't want to readily tear out the pages. And it was important to me that it was thin because I didn't know what my commitment was going to be. And so that night I went home and I started writing, Dear God, hear my prayers. And it was like everything just poured out of me. My handwriting was probably an inch in height because I carried so much anger in my body. And then, I continued to do that. Anxiety attacks came not on cue. I didn't want them. They would just show up anytime. And one time I was driving my car. The song Hello by Lionel Richie came on, which was my husband's and our song in a sense.
Oh, wow.
And I found myself having an out-of-body experience. Somehow I ended up in my church parking lot. It was the Catholic church that I attended with my husband, although I was not Catholic. And I don't even remember how I got there. But I sat there in the car, and the church was on the left side and the rectory was on the right side. And so I had every intention of just going into the church and praying, and God led me to the rectory door. So I went over to the rectory and I banged on the door like a crazy woman, crying for help. And this woman came to the door and she says, I'm sorry, no one's here to help you. And so I collapsed in the doorway. The Monsignor came running. He was getting ready to leave for an appointment and certainly canceled it when he saw the shape that I was in. And so I talked to him for the next 3 hours. He asked me if I was a Catholic, and I said no, that I wasn't. And he said they were just starting the RCIA classes, which are the Rite of Christian Initiation classes. And he said, I would suggest that you go to them. If you choose to become a Catholic, that's great. If not, it would be fine. One of the things that I suffered with was trust, because, I found out that my whole entire marriage and my whole life with my husband was a total lie. And everywhere I turned, it was just lies, lies, and more lies. So when I went into my first class for the RCIA classes, I went there and there were 12 other people that attended with me. And then there were the teachers who were just amazing because they knew the powers of God. For the most part, when we walked in, many of us were broken. And so I certainly needed fixed. But there I found peace. I found security. I found trust. I found everything that I did. And I ended up becoming a Catholic. And then I ended up sitting perpetual adoration at our church. And perpetual adoration, for people who don't know, you actually sit in a church or a chapel. You have a statue, which is called a monstrous or ascensori, which the Blessed Sacrament is there. And basically, it's just a one-on-one with God. So I used a journal. I had a separate journal that I set up specifically for adoration. And so I would just write in that journal when I was there. And then after about 6 months, I wondered what God would say to me. So I turned to the back of my journal and I wrote, Dear Janet on the top and love God on the bottom. I said, empty lines waited patiently while I waited anxiously to see if it was crazy or profound. And about after a half an hour, my hand started to move. And I wasn't aware of what I was writing. It was coming to me through my head, my heart, and my soul. And the beautiful part about God's letters is even though it was, almost, I don't know, 16 years ago, the letter that he wrote could have been written yesterday because the same thing applies yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And then I share a lot of those letters in my book because
Yes.
it's amazing how much comfort you feel by doing that. But my book, The God Promised Me Wings to Fly, was published in 2018. But in June 18th, 2004, God wrote a letter to me that basically says, know that I have chosen you to do a special task for me. One, I don't want you to take very lightly. One day you will write a book, and when that time comes, we'll write it together. Through our words, you will bring many people to me. It'll be a great success for you, but a greater success for the lives that you changed. And I will put the right people into your life to make it happen. Of course, I replied, really, God, I was in Mr. Fox's remedial reading class in the 7th grade. Surely you could choose someone to me. And he says, no, I chose you. So I'm not trying to be Holy Ghost Junior by any stretch of the imagination. But my book is real. It's raw. If I said I wet my pants, you know what? I wet my pants. If I said I vomited and had dried vomit all over me, that was there. If I something happened and I did this action because I felt it needed to be done, but I also tell you in the back of my mind, that's not what I really wanted to do, especially approaching other women. So it's real, but for whatever reason, God has given me a talent to write my books so that when I write, you feel what I'm writing about.
Absolutely.
You feel,
Absolutely.
and if anything comes out after reading the book, you say, my God, if that woman got through that, I can get through anything,
Anything.
But it doesn't, yeah, but it doesn't matter how many times you fall. You just have to keep getting up. You just have to believe that there is a God. You have to believe that there is a purpose behind everything. And I'm seeing that now. I mean, when my book first came out, my family would say, oh, how many books did you sell today? How many books did you sell today? And I would sell one and I'd say 10, because I was like almost embarrassed, but I didn't do the marketing behind it. I just didn't, everything was so new to me. So now things are moving in an absolutely amazing direction, faster than I can keep up with it, which is good. I don't know if that answered your question because I just keep going on. So ask me another question and I'll tell you.
I don't remember what question I asked you. But I told you that was going to happen before we got on. I mean, the messages, the stories, the life that you share with us is what the audience needs. And I always just go from what God puts in my head, and then I let you give us all this goody stuff that you've been giving us. But I want to read a couple of your favorite quotes.
Okay, good.
Success is no accident. It is hard work, perseverance, learning, studying, sacrifice, and most of all, love what you are doing or learning to do. You have Pete. Your work is going to fill a large part of your life, and the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking. Don't settle. As with all matters of the heart, you'll know when you find it. Steve Jobs. Yeah, I wholeheartedly believe in that. And I'm always looking for individuals who are stuck in doing what they love but not getting where they want to be, which is happiness in what they're doing. So I have lived most of my life living your quotes.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was really interesting when I ran across them that you would, but there is y'all got to read this book. Oh my God. Y'all got to read this book. And you need a vacation to read it because you're going to want to read it again and again and again. I don't know why you only sold one book.
Oh, well, no, I sold a lot more after that.
Right.
That was just in the beginning, but God told me that I would be giving a lot of the books away. And I do. Anytime I talk with someone and they're going through some challenges, and I said, you need to read my book. And they go, how much is it? I said, no, I'll just give it to you, and that's fine. But, interesting things happen with God. I mean, for me, I lived in a high-rise condo overlooking a river. It was probably the most expensive address in Wilmington, Delaware, in condos and everything. But then in 2007, 2008, when we had the recession and I was in the luxury diamond business, there were no luxury sales during that time. So I ended up pulling from my 401k to help me out in times, but I ended up pulling the money out and then not having the money to pay the taxes on it. So that put me into a terrible situation. And I ended up losing my house. I had to file for bankruptcy. I lost my house. But I looked at it because it was very comfortable where I was, extremely comfortable. And I know that and I'm sure God gave me many signs to say, okay, it's time for you to move on. But I just didn't take those signs. So he goes, well, I'm just going to take it into my own hands, and this is what's going to happen. So, I was humbled, very humbled. I ended up living with my daughter for what I was hoping for just a year. And I ended up living with her for 3 years. And finally, when I left, it was like, get the heck out of here. I never want to see you again. I never want to talk to you again. I just don't, we're not even talking. I mean, now, years later, we're like very close and we talk all the time. But the crazy thing is that a year before, when I had gone to church, the Monsignor told about a man who was a maintenance man for the church, that his family's house burnt to the ground and they lost everything and they didn't have any insurance, only the shell of the house. And he said, whatever you can do for them, it would be very grateful. Well, at the time, I was going through what I was going through, and the best I could do was $20, and that was it. His name is Felix, and I never met him because I went to church on the weekends and he was there Monday through Friday. So I went to the Monsignor and I asked him if the man is still in need of anything, because I figured, I was going to give many things away because I always wanted to live in a yellow house in Florida for whatever reason. Since I was 8 years old, I never knew anyone in Florida. Yellow wasn't my favorite color. I have no idea why any of that took place, but that was always my dream. I'm living in a yellow house in Florida. So I would even buy things and say, oh, this will look great in my house in Florida, or this here and stuff. But I ended up giving lots of things away. So I approached Felix and he said that his house was going to be built or finished, repairs in December. And my foreclosure was in February. And so he said, contact him. And then in January, I still hadn't heard from him. So I reached out to him because now everything's time sensitive and I need to get out. So I went around my condo and I put orange labels that said Felix, on it, like here and here. And I went, I don't know. I want to keep that and take it off and put it on. I lived with those orange labels for about a week. And then Felix came over with his wife, Maria. And so by that time I had my dishes and on top of the counter. He ended up leaving with, and everything was custom in my house, custom drapes, custom sofas, custom bedspreads, custom this, everything was custom, So I ended up giving him beds, televisions, washer and dryers, dining room tables, wall units.
Wow.
And stuff, everything else, right? So when Maria went into the kitchen and she saw the dishes, she went, oh, are these mine? And I go, yeah. And she said, oh, because we've been eating off of paper plates. So I pointed out and I said, even these cups and saucers. And I said, I've never even used these. And Felix says, well, we use mugs. And I said, oh, great. In my basement, in the storage, I have a lot of mugs. I said, I will get them for you. So anyway, it was crazy. So I went downstairs and I got the mugs and I was wrapping them in newspaper and everything. And I came across 2 mugs. One had Tony on it, which was my husband's name. And the other one was a Tony the Tiger. And I started to wrap them. I thought, this is ridiculous. They don't want these mugs. So I just took them and held them off to the side. 2 days later, Felix comes back with his son to help him break down all the furniture and everything. And he says, oh, Janet, he says, my son is very strong. I'd like you to meet him. His name is Tony. And I go, what? So I said to him, I said, well, Tony, I've got something special for you. And thinking like, what the heck could that be? Because you just met me. How do you say that? And then I couldn't find the mugs. And when I tried to find them, they couldn't be found. And then when I did, and I handed it over to him, it was like I was giving him the birth of my child or something like that, which is really
wow.
crazy. Which is crazy. So that's, those are like little God winks and things. But when I decided to move to Florida, I went to Zillow and I was looking for, actually, I flew to Florida and I ended up getting a job as a manager in a jewelry store and ended up finding a house. And like, I was so excited and everything. And then a week before or 2 weeks before I was supposed to move down here, the people that were renting the house to me would not rent to me because I had filed for bankruptcy. So I went, oh, great. So then I ended up finding another house. And so the other house, it looked beautiful and everything, but I had my sister go over to it and I said, can you just take a picture of the backyard? I know there's water behind it, but I'm just curious, what does it look like? Well, it was more like a insect infested pond that was back there. So I said, no, I can't do that. So then I went back on Zillow again and I found another house, with a water view. And I thought, oh, this is, and my sister came over to see it. She says, it's absolutely perfect, So then I went back to the person and said, I'll take it. And they go, no, we're not going to rent to you because of your bankruptcy. And I thought, oh my God, you've got to be kidding me. So now I'm just a week away from coming down here. And now I'm thinking, I don't have any place to go. I got everything to do. I got no place to go. So I ended up writing him like a 6-page letter. And I told him everything about me, fine jewelry and diamond broker. I have a job, all this stuff and everything. At the time, I had even invented a jewelry class with patents pending. I owned a travel agency because I ended up working for Apple Vacations part-time, and he asked me to open a travel agency, and I came down here. So he said that he would rent to me, and I had to give him the first month's rent, last month's rent, and a security deposit. So I had to give him like $5,000, but I didn't see the house until I pulled up into the driveway. And so when I drove the car, and a friend of mine had everything in a truck, and he was driving the truck in front of me. But from Delaware to Virginia, I don't even remember that ride because I was crying so hard because I was just devastated, leaving everything behind me of 50 some years. And then I was coming down here. Plus, that insult to injury was the fact that I was estranged from my daughter. And, it was like the unknown was there. I was scared. But all the way down from driving down, the 2,000 miles that I drove, I looked for any sign from God to say, you're going to be okay.
Right.
And there was nothing.
Right.
I was looking for faith. I was looking for hope. I was looking for just anything. I was looking for the number 11 or 1111. Just anything.
A cloud shaped in a certain way.
Nothing. So I pulled up in my driveway, and knowing that I had this water behind me, I jumped out of my car and I ran to the back of the house to see the water. And I went, oh my God, this is like heaven. I've never been any place that's so peaceful. So I came back out and saw that my next door neighbor was moving. And I said, how can you move away from this? This is so peaceful. Everything about it is wonderful. And she says, no, it's time for us to downsize. And then she said to me, did you see the cross? I said, cross? What cross? And so we walked out back, and she pointed out that the owner of the house had put a cross in the water, an iron cross that stood about 4 feet high out of the water for the birds to perch on. And when I went to see the cross, there was this white swan sitting next to it.
Oh,
and of course, and I lifted my hands in the air and I go, you put a cross in my backyard? You put a cross in my backyard? Like, what the heck is this? But I knew in that moment in time, that everything was going to be okay. And I just never looked back. And when you go to my website, which is simply janetgrilloauthor.com, that's the main picture is on the website. And it's true. And it's taken with an iPhone. I mean, it's an amazing photo. But
so it's not, I thought it was just graphic. It actually is a real picture.
It's a real picture with a huge meaning behind it. Yeah.
That is incredible.
That's amazing. Mm-hmm.
That is incredible. So let's talk about your life going forward.
Oh, wow. Okay. So
you can take a breath. You can take a deep breath.
If God told me that my life was going to be what it is today, I would go, you've got to be kidding me. Really? You're going to do that? And you're going to do that? And really, that's going to happen? Seriously?
To me.
To me, I mean, to me, right? To me, Because what happened is after I published the book, well, here's an interesting thing right before that. Let me just tell you this, because my stepfather was 91 years old. And he knew that I had written a book, and he knew that I was going to publish a book, which was the Victory Journal. And then when I came back to him, he said, "Oh, you've got to be kidding me." He said, "You've got to write another book." He says, "I hope I'm alive to see the publication of that book."
Wow.
So I pushed pen to paper, and I wrote the book in 7 months and published it in 8 months. I published it in April of 2018, and he died in July of 2018. So when you read the dedication to my book, it's but the crazy thing, and another God moment, just to interject, and his name was Doug, is he was in hospice. And so when he went into hospice, he went into a coma. And so I stayed with him 24/7, for the most part I was there. And, but he never once opened his eyes in the whole 10 days that he was there, except the last day when I went into him, his eyes weren't closed. His eyes were like wide open, like really wide open like this. And he never blinked once for 12 hours. He never blinked once. Right. And you could see that death was setting in and stuff and everything. And he hadn't spoken anything. And so I was talking on the phone to my sister around 8 o'clock at night. And I said, "I got to go. I think he's dying, And so I got off the phone, and he said out loud, now he hadn't spoken. He goes, "Ha ha," like that. And then he died. And then he just died. And I said to the nurse, and I said, "Is he gone?" And she said, "Yeah." I mean, it was like, "Ha ha," or something like really loud like that. So then he was gone. And in my eyes, I thought, and I had just seen a picture of him that day when he was 25 years old, and he was Hollywood handsome. And I have the picture of him in my book as well. Because I went, "Doug, that was you?" I couldn't believe how handsome he was. And so when he did talk, he would tell me that he was afraid of dying. I said, "Don't be afraid of dying." I said, "Number one, you're not going to be old. You're not going to be crippled. You're not going to be semi-blind. You're going to probably return to the age of Christ, which is 33 years old. You're going to be handsome and you're going to be healthy." He goes, "Really?" And I go, "Yeah, I think so." So for me, my thought process was that he not only saw God and his family, I think he probably saw his younger self. And in all my years of thinking or anything, I never thought that. But in that moment, because of such jubilation from him and talking from basically a coma state or something like that he did that. And then the craziest thing happened. I was driving home. It was 2 o'clock in the morning with a family member. And as I'm driving like 40 miles down the road, this frog about this big jumps on my windshield, and it's holding on like for dear life, and then we're screaming like two little girls, because we were petrified. And at a traffic light, I took a picture of that frog, and then I posted it to Facebook. But when I posted it, I was reminded that FROG means faithfully rely on God.
Wow.
And that was like way too cool. Mm-hmm. But to answer your question, which one question goes into another thing, is that I had the opportunity to meet with people in New York at a national publicity summit. And I was able to present my book to TV, radio, podcast, and magazines. During that time, I met a woman by the name of Tammy Devine, who owns Crown City News in Sacramento. And through Tammy and I, when we were talking, I said to her, I don't know why it bothers me, but it does. And I often wonder why you can have two people that would come home from war, maybe with the same injury, and maybe they've both lost their legs. What's the difference between one strapping on prosthesis legs and running a marathon, and the other one becoming an alcoholic, a martyr, a drug addict, and eventually committing suicide? And I truly believe it's the presence of God in our lives. And the reason why I say that is because if God can come to me and say, "I chose you to make it so that you can go, and you will go through that pain and suffering, but with me, but I chose you to go through that so that you can be a credible witness, so that when people talk to you, you know exactly how they feel. I will create miracles in your life, because then you can tell people that, you know what, this is real. God is real, and he's not going to answer you right away. Sometimes I wondered if God even truly existed, and I go like, hello, where are you?
Right.
And I didn't know that. So, but one of the things that happened is we decided that I was going to be a freelance writer, and I was interviewing veterans. And so I interviewed veterans, and some of them had attempted suicide. You thought about it, but then they're living the life where they are now. One of the women that I interviewed, she's called a Gold Star mom. It's either Gold Star mom, Gold Star dad. Their child committed suicide. And it was her son who committed suicide, and he was in the service. And she told me about a man by the name of Howard Barry, which is out of the Chicago area, whose son committed suicide as well. And Howard started a demonstration of flags, because in the flag that's behind me, that's on veteransuicideawareness.org is where you can see the whole flag. The flag behind me represents, there's 22 veterans, on average, 22 veterans commit suicide every day, 660 a month, and more than 7,000 veterans die each year. And unfortunately, that number has gone up. It hasn't been registered, but now it's not just, and they suffered from PTSD, most of them, but now what we're running into is COVID PTSD, and that's going to be huge. So the suffering is the same. But what happened was I was telling my sister about my interview and Howard and everything, and she said that she had seen a display of flags, a lot of them, but she never knew what they meant. And so I decided that I was going to design a flag that when someone sees it, they'll know exactly what it means. So the flag behind me is the one that I designed. It's trademark pending on that. The colors that I introduced into the flag are turquoise and purple, because turquoise and purple are the colors for suicide prevention. There are 50 stars on the flag, but on 30 of the stars, there are combination colors of the turquoise and purple, and each star has a 22 on it. So, and there are 30 stars. So the 30 stars represent the 660 lives of veterans that are taken, that they take their own life every month. So my goal is to get it in front of President Trump or President Biden, whoever it is, to have my flag be the face of their new Prevents program, which is the president's roadmap to empower veterans and end a national tragedy, suicide. So that's one of the things that I'm doing. Another thing is I've had the opportunity to work with chaplains in the state of Florida, and I just signed up for a course, and it's called Dare to Care Mental Health Coach Program, which anyone can join that. And basically it's a faith-based program that you take. It's normally $2,400, but with a code, it's only costs $54. And so it's going to help people give you, because it's supported by the state or something, but it's going to help people give you, help you have a better understanding, so that myself as a motivational speaker, when I do speak in front of veterans, and it is faith-based and everything, it'll give me an idea just for me to know that. And so they need hundreds, if not thousands, of people to take the course. So they would do that. And so what happened, like about a month ago, I received a phone call from someone that I met like 3 years ago. So that's another God thing, And so the woman reminded me that I had met her in an Author 101 conference in Orlando 3 years prior. And I did an interview for her. She was out of Boston. And so after the interview, she told me that she was also writing a book. And she also mentioned that she had a friend, and his name is Terry Whalen. And Terry is an acquisition manager for a publishing company, Morgan James Publishing Company. And Terry also wrote Billy Graham's autobiography. So he's an accomplished writer of 40 books, and some of his books have sold over 100,000 copies and stuff.
Oh my goodness.
So I said to her, do you mind if I give him a call? I said, just before I put hundreds of hours into editing this book to present it in front of someone, I said, do you mind? She said, no, not at all. So with that introduction, I called Terry and I said, can you just do me a favor and take a look? I said, just like I said, do I have anything here? Don't I have anything here? He said, sure, I don't mind doing that. But we have a minister who's also an editor acquisition person, and he reads all of the faith-based books. So he said, if he gives his approval, then it'll go. So he said, just do me a favor and send me a copy of your other book, which the God Promised Me Wings to Fly was the one that I self-published. And so I waited, for 2 weeks, and every day I looked for emails and nothing. And finally I get a phone call from him 2 weeks later, and he says, you didn't check your email? And I said, no, today's the only day I didn't check it, So he said, no, he said, his name is Wes Taylor. So Wes read your books. He said he loves my victory journal, but he's really in love with God Promised Me Wings to Fly. He said, so our company would like to offer you 2 contracts for both of your books. And I go, what? Really? I said, you kidding me? You know, from people going, yeah, it's good. It's that. He says, no, he likes that. So he said, but don't take that too lightly. He said, because the company receives 5,000 submissions a year. Of the 5,000 submissions, they only publish 150. And out of the 150, they only publish 20 faith-based books. So I guess I'm 2 out of 5,000 books. So we decided that I signed the first contract for God Promised Me Wings to Fly. And so I'm working on that now. I'm working with someone out of Chicago to get grants because it costs money to do everything. To do that. So he's working, so we're working on that. And that was another godsend in itself. So, but the goal is to edit both books, that both books will be published and released in May of 2021, because in May is Mental Health Month. So that's what we're doing on that. So that's quite involved. And then once the
book, that's a lot.
Well, it's interesting the way the contract reads. It says, like Janet Grillo gives Morgan James Publishing permission to publish her paperback book worldwide, hard copy book worldwide, audio book worldwide. And I'm thinking, oh my God. So, it's the beautiful part, and which I remembered from before, is that there are no limitations in God's world. None whatsoever. But, I never in my wildest dreams could imagine anything like this happening. It's just mind-boggling to me. So what I just did is I just set up an umbrella company. It's called Journey of Hope Survivors. Sure. And then a couple of weeks ago, I got an email that said that I received a message from someone from LinkedIn. So I went to the man's page and I looked at the messages, and there was no message from this man. So I wrote a message to him and said, my name is Janet Grillo. I don't know why LinkedIn said to me that I have a message from you, because there's no message from you. And I noticed that he specialized in grants. And so I said to him, do they ever give grants to authors? And he said, oh, yeah. And I said, but I'm also working with veterans, and I also designed the Veteran Suicide Awareness Flag. And I'm also working and taking the Dare to Care mental health program for veterans. And I'm, which is also extended to COVID-19. And he goes, oh my God, yes. So here again, another God wink. I never heard this guy. I never did anything. And now, he comes and he's working for me and working on getting grants, not just from the state of Florida, from the state of Delaware, because I was there, faith-based companies, women's organizations and stuff. So that's what I'm working on now. So one thing I've learned with God is that even in times when, I thought, how in the world am I going to pay for that? Or where am I going to get the money for this? Or something like that. It's always there. People would say, aren't you worried? Like I lost my job. I was working part-time in a travel agency, full-time until she couldn't afford us full-time. We said, well, we'll just work part-time. And then March 14th, I lost my job to that. So, but I decided that I was going to use the time that I had off, working with government funds, to support me with unemployment, that I was going to use that to better myself, and then also work on my book. Although I didn't realize at that time in March that, in July, I was going to get an offer for 2 contracts on that. So
worldwide contracts.
Worldwide. Worldwide contracts, I know. So
I know you had to sleep on that. Like, what just happened?
I know. And the thing is I didn't want to tell anyone in my family until I had the contract signed. And that was important for me, because they'll say, like, don't get your hopes up, don't do this, don't do that, or something like that. So I did wait until I signed the contract to do that.
And so once you got the contract signed, did you go, nah, 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 nah?
I walk in the bookstores and they see it there. But Morgan James, he says, you have no idea how excited the company is about this book. And even though it's will be put out by a publishing company, it's still up to me to do a tremendous amount of marketing for it, because my goal is especially with the the book, my victory journal. There's so many churches and things that have victory in their titles, that I can just target into that first. And so I'll be starting to set up speaking engagements and book signings, but starting in May of next year. So my biggest challenge is because of COVID and a knee replacement in November, I put on a few extra pounds that I don't like. So now my goal, my biggest challenge is to lose the weight that I want to lose, so that if I'm standing in front of people talking about transformation, I want them to see that, once you put your head in the game, that it'll be just fine.
Transformation happens from the inside out.
That's right. Yeah. I know. Yeah. So
I mean, I should not be saying that to you because you have lived that. But sometimes we just need a reminder from the outside.
Yeah,
that transformation happens from the inside out. And you're absolutely gorgeous. So once you start talking about life after suicide, nobody's going to be looking at your weight, sweetie.
Oh, that's probably true. Nobody really notices it, except for me. But yeah. I just want to, I feel good about myself. I've somewhat accepted myself, but I just want to feel better about myself.
Great. I want to feel great.
So hopefully the next time you see me, you'll see less of me, in a sense. But that's what, if it is, it is. If it's not, if I see you next week, it won't be any less. I can tell you that.
I know, but what you lose in weight is going to be added to you in glow. So,
Absolutely. Yeah. That's true.
It's going to be, because you have quite a path for you. I see your challenges are that you need marketing, speaking engagements, and something else that you mentioned. Book tour, is that what you said?
Book tours, yeah. Mm-hmm. To book tours and book signings.
Where do people find you?
You can go to my website, janetgrilloauthor.com, and there's a contact page on there, and you can send me a note through there, or it's just janet@janetgrilloauthor.com. You can do that too. So, I'm open and available for speaking engagements. And hopefully, maybe we'll do some Zoom, but right now I'm very consumed with getting the books edited. So that's my number one priority. I'm working about 10 hours a day on that. And it's interesting in itself because, for me to go through it, and copy and paste paragraph line by line, into Grammarly and stuff, I'm reliving it. So as I'm rereading my book, I'm going, man, I forgot about that. Oh yeah, I forgot about that girlfriend. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot about this. And then at the end of some chapter, I'll just say, phew, I don't know how you made it through that, but you did. And it's interesting because, and I have one section in my book where I wrote that I was just a basket case, I was in a fetal position. And basically I said I raised myself from a fetal position to a woman of victory, but people have to understand that healing and recovery doesn't come overnight. But I find that, and everyone will find, that when you take the emphasis off of yourself, when you start to put a mission behind what you're doing, and you may not understand that that's your passion, but then when someone comes to you, like I have people come to me, like even after my last talk, and I switched it up a bit and I said, everyone has a story, but they don't feel that their story is worth being told. But we have to understand that we have to go through those traumas in order to help other people. And then I looked out in the audience and everyone was crying. I'm going, oh my God, I never experienced that before. And then after the talk, people came up to me and one person said, I never told anyone this, but I was raped when I was 5 years old. Or I had a sister who way back then, referred to them as being retarded, and my parents locked her in a closet, and that's where she lived. And then she said, but then one Halloween she dressed her up and she took her out, and then everybody found out about her. But still, for that, and I just said, and when people have challenges, and I just said, you know what, just get a journal and write to God.
Yes, I love my dear God journaling.
Yeah, and then here's the other thing is my father died June 21st, 1988, and my mother died June 21st, 1999. Same day, 11 years apart, divorced for 25 years. And so, I went to, and included in my book as well, as I went to my parents' grave in 2007 on June 21st, on the anniversary date of my husband and I went to his grave and I wrote "Dear Janet" on the top, "Love God, love Tony" on the bottom. On my parents, it was "Dear Janet, love Mom," and then "Dear Janet, love Dad." Well, back at the time in 2007, I was driving a Cadillac SRX, which was like an SUV, in a sense. And my father in 1988, he had a yellow Cadillac. I said it had big ass fins on it, and everything.
I
And,
remember those.
and my father's letter to me started out by saying, "You call that a Cadillac? That's not your father's Cadillac." And I went, "Oh my God, he's here." And so then it kind of went on, from there. The letter that Tony wrote to me is so real and graphic that when my daughter read it, she threw my journal across the room and she says, "Oh my God, that's scary stuff." So know that everyone has this power within them. When I was 6 years old, I drowned and my spirit left my body. And that's how I start my book out. Actually, when I was 6 years old, I drowned. So I didn't see people, on the other side. I didn't see a light, but I just saw myself looking over my body. I didn't see getting rescued. I didn't see being resuscitated. I just saw people crowded around me and crying. But I never spoke about that until I was 21 years old, when I read a book that was called Life After Life by Raymond Moody. So for me, I talk to people who have passed away all the time, and sometimes, I'll be there like they're almost whispering in my ears, and my sister goes, "Well, nobody ever talks to me." But, but I don't know if it's because I had that experience of dying and being brought back to life that I'm aware of that. Sometimes, for whatever reason, it always seems like I'm in the bathroom and I don't know why. I mean, I could be putting on makeup or whatever in there, and then I'll get a fine mist. You just know, it's like a little mist that kind of passes by. So now I just simply say, "I don't know who you are, but hello, how are you?" And it doesn't scare me anymore on that. Yeah.
I
So
have I have
it's interesting.
shadows. I have shadows that pass me.
Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah.
you,
Yeah, I
I
have
mean,
well, my
it's
great-grandmother came to me when I was very little after she passed.
oh wow.
She came to me,
Hmm.
and I wasn't asleep. I know I wasn't asleep. And from that point, it was very loving, and, it wasn't
Hmm.
scary or anything, and I was too young to even know that it was supposed to be scary. But from that point on, I've always been in tune to I was on the phone one day with someone, and they said, I was like, "What's the matter?" And he was like, "I just saw somebody behind you." And I looked. There was no one. I said, "Oh, okay." And she said, "No, I really did." I was like, "It's okay. It's fine." So yeah, I know what you're
No.
saying, but
Yeah. Yeah.
my whole family has some type of intuitive sense.
Hmm.
So it kind of runs in the family, I say, but I just think that we're so close to God that his people, no matter whether they're here or there or
Hmm.
in between,
Hmm.
pass by us.
Yeah.
I kind of think we're like in the way. Like,
Yeah.
excuse me.
I just feel that they're all around, that they're here, but they're just in a different dimension. It's
Yeah.
more or less thinking like they're in another room, and you just kind of have to think of it that way, because as long as we hold them in our heart, then they're there. I mean, I had to let go of the anger for my husband, because the anger was destroying me. I mean,
Yes.
absolutely. It was
Yes.
destroying me from the inside out. I mean, I couldn't take one step without the anger, and then the fact that he died, the fact that his family walked away from me, the fact that I found out, about this lover and that lover and this person and that person, and then I find out that he was just everything. I'm going, really? Like, who was this man? Found out that he owned a lot of guns, and I go, no, he didn't own a lot of guns. Oh no, he did. And some of them were connected. Although he didn't kill himself with a gun that he had, he went out and bought another gun. And I said, well, why would that be from a psychic? And she said, because he didn't want the other guns connected to him, because they were government guns. And I will, well, isn't that scary? you know, so I don't know. So real or not real, I changed names in my book to protect the guilty, and so so people don't come after me. So I was very cautious, when I did that.
So
But
you've died twice and survived.
I have died twice and survived. And the crazy thing too is what I have in my book, and I wasn't going to put it in my book, and then one of my coaches says, "Oh no, you've got to put that in
Put it in
there."
the book.
Not only have I died twice and been brought back to life, but I have actually saved the lives or helped save the lives of 5 people. And so I said, well, why would I put that in there? She said, you don't understand. Doctors save people, but regular people don't save people. I mean, one was a house fire, brought a boy out and gave him artificial respiration. And the crazy thing is one was my husband from drowning. And so, and I share, those incidences in there. And it's interesting because I certainly had to go to a psychiatrist or psychologist, whatever. I probably went to both. And the one
Right.
and talking about my husband's death. And she said, for me, it was difficult for me because I valued his life more than he valued his life.
Wow.
And I said, yeah. So, I mean, for me, if I can help change someone's life, change someone's way of thinking, that's a beautiful thing. If I can help people understand that, yes, there is a God, he's not going to answer you every time you call, and he's not going to answer you right away in some cases. I mean, for me, wanting that yellow house in Florida, I know that yellow house is going to be there, but it's 60 years. I mean, like, hello, God, 60 years, that I'm waiting for that, but I'm not living in a yellow house now. So I know the fact that I don't have it, I know that there's more,
Right.
and
You
now
still have some living to do.
yeah, that might going to be not only distributed worldwide, it's going to be translated in different languages too. And I thought, well, how cool was that?
How cool is that? So at this point, you really don't have to try. You can just keep doing what you're doing, and you'll be speaking to millions of people and changing millions and millions of lives.
I see that. I see myself on stage doing that. But the trying part is always there. The trying part's always there because, you just don't know what one word that you're going to say that's going to change someone's life. You don't know what impression you can be on it. It may be something that I'm in someone's life for just a moment, but you remember that it's like that grief counselor. When you write in a journal, do you write directly to God? It's like the massage
One
therapist
thing.
saying, give me, call this person. So you just don't know where it's going to be. But what I did is I thought, okay, well, if it's here, if it's this, I'm going to look for this, which that's trying. And then I just finally said, absolutely not. Let go and let
Let it
God.
go.
And don't
Yes.
worry about tomorrow because God's already there,
Yes.
and you have to. And then one thing that left a big impression for me from Joyce Myers, and I verified in the Bible that God gives you back double for your trouble. So I said, well, I'm going to have a really big payday, but that's coming because, like I said, the life that's starting to form in front of me, I couldn't have envisioned that whatsoever. But I know that just by keeping my heart open and becoming a better listener with things, taking the focus off of yourself and putting it on someone else and really say, what can I do for you? What can I say? What can I do for you that's going to help change your life or someone else's lives? And in the end, I'm the person, the giver is the one that has the greatest rewards because,
Yes.
anything that we take back, it just goes right to our heart. And if we can help people understand that if they just simply don't give up, then don't worry about it. Everything's going to be okay. But you need to take the pressure off of yourself. So I didn't worry when I lost my job. I didn't worry when the $600, the money stopped. I didn't worry about anything because I know that I have never been in a situation where God has let me down. But he lets us struggle. He lets us fall. But he always knows that in order for us to continue on, it's his hand that we have to hold on to. He is there with us. I mean, it's crazy because as I'm rereading my book, as I'm re-editing the book, And I read some of the things and I go, man, that's good. But then I think, you know what? Those aren't my words. Those aren't my words. Sometimes I come back and I go, and I look at it and I go, did I write that?
Yeah, you wrote it.
Yeah, I know. But it was
But
like,
right, it didn't come from your consciousness, but you wrote it.
I wrote it, but it didn't come from my consciousness.
Right.
And I look at that and I see the words that are selected and I see it, and I write every day and I ask God and say, okay, let's get to work here. It's you and me, kid, sort of thing. So in today's terminology, I say that God is my BFF. And I know that I would not be the person I am today, and I know that I would not be the person that I'm becoming, and I know that I would not be as effective as I'm hoping and praying that I will be to help other people without God. Because with when you don't have God in your life, life is a struggle. But when you do have God in your life, everything comes with ease. And maybe not the first time, because we have to learn to be able to stand on our own, but we also have to understand that God's right beside you and he's never going to let you fall.
That is so true. That is
Mhm.
so true. I'm so glad to have you
Thank you.
on podcast today because a lot of things that you have said have been a reminder for me
Hmm.
because it's been a struggle since COVID's come.
Hmm.
And every time I try to let go, there's no confirmation that it's going to take some time. Just let go, Terry. Just let go.
Hmm.
And you being here today has been a great, great reminder. I'm sure not only for me, but for I have like 5,000 followers on Facebook.
Okay.
So, speaking of social media, where do we find you on social media?
Probably I'm under Janet Grillo on Facebook or Janet Grillo author. I have both of those pages that are there.
You
Uh,
mentioned LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, just simply under Janet Grillo.
Okay. Are you on Instagram or Twitter?
I not consistently. So
Not
those are things
consistently.
that I need to learn down the road on that. So I still have to keep trying and do that. But I don't take anything for granted, but I just know that I just need to work with the right people in order to get me the right exposure to do that. Because it's something that I can't do on my own. And even for that Dare to Care mental health coaching program, that would be amazing if people can reach out to me for that. So I can put them, with the right person. They can just contact me through my website and then just give me their phone number and then I'll give them a call.
I'm
I'm
definitely interested in that.
okay. I will
I'm
definitely
definitely interested in
send you
that.
the information on that for sure. And I'll send
Yes.
a copy and email to the person who's in charge of it and then copy you on that. And then he will get in touch with you.
Well, all right, beautiful.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'm
And
very good.
I mean that beautiful on the inside as well as on the outside.
Thank you. Thank you.
Your journey has been our blessing,
Thank you.
and we thank you for sharing it.
My pleasure. It was my pleasure.
And this is not the last time we're going to see you because I can't wait for those books to come out.
I know. Yeah.
I want to
We'll
see
do it
you do that
together.
happy dance.
That's right. Definitely a happy dance. That's for sure.
And
Um,
please don't forget to contact me if I can help in any way.
Absolutely. I will do that. And everyone, thank you so much. And thank you for listening to my story. I hope it's made a difference in your lives, but it doesn't stop here at the end of this podcast. Reach
No.
out to me and I will contact you one on one. I will definitely do that.
And do audience, do remember that once her podcast comes out on Apple Podcasts and 17 other directories, all of her contact information and her bio information will be in the directory, and she will have her own blog post. So all that information will be there. So this is not the last time you'll be able to contact her or get her information.
That sounds good.
Janet Grillo. One more time. God promised me wings to fly. There's life after suicide.
Mhm.
Thank you, Janet, so much.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay, you too. Thanks. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
I want to thank you for listening because this podcast is for you.
And don't forget to get your listening gift. You can go to listeninggift.com. That's LISTENING gift.com. Compliments and constructive criticism are welcome. If there is anything you would like me to talk about, just hit me up. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Coach Terry Lynn. That is Coach T as in Tom, ERRILYNN. And remember, create habits and outstanding success with us right here on Chaos.